Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Heran Medhin, and I'm an Enterprise Customer Success Manager here at Ironclad, which means that I help some of our biggest customers solve their biggest challenges with Ironclad. So I'm here joined by Charles Hurr, Assistant General Counsel at L'Oreal USA, and we're going to talk about all things AI in Ironclad. Charles is going to start by sharing some insight about how L'Oreal is already using L'Oreal Ironclad AI, and then a little bit about the impact that he's seen since first rolling it out, and what he believes the future looks like. So you're going to see 3 demos throughout the discussion. It's going to be broken up into sections. And then we'll save some time at the end for questions. So as we're talking, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat as they come to you, and we'll get to them in that order. Great. So, Charles, really excited to have you here, and I'm excited for our conversation. L'Oreal has been an Ironclad partner for a while now, so I'd love if you could just walk me through the evolution of our partnership and how you guys are using Ironclad today.
Sure. So I'm excited to spend the next 30 minutes talking with you about AI and Ironclad as well. I'm going to start just by introducing myself briefly. So my name is Charles Hurr. I'm Associate General Counsel at L'Oreal in the United States. L'Oreal is a big global organization that includes about 35 to 40 different brands. So those of you who are thinking of L'Oreal Paris and hair color, that's just a small piece of what we do. We have many other brands, including Kiehl's and Maybelline and a lot of other, and we operate across the globe. We have, in addition, we're talking about the legal department, we have lawyers that operate in 50 different countries across the world.
Wow.
So and I've been at L'Oreal about 6 years, and very early on started working with Ironclad. So it's been a little over 5.5 years since we first started working with Ironclad, and I'm amazed at how the product has developed and changed. It's originally when I started working with it, I was excited because it was simple and easy to use interface, and as the product's growing more and more complex, I'm afraid it's going to quickly outstrip my my expertise, but we'll see.
We'll keep you educated, Charles. We got you. We got your back.
But yeah, no. So we are one of the first beta customers looking at some of the AI functionality that
Yeah,
Ironclad has.
I'd
And I
love to
talked.
talk.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was say I talked a little bit about this last fall in the State of Digital Contracting for those of you on this call who might have seen it. And at the time, we were talking about just about AI playbooks. And in the intervening couple months, AI has become a big topic. And I'm sure all of you are curious and tuning in, having read many news reports about, in particular, Bing's new search engine using AI, using OpenAI's tool, the same company that is partnering with Ironclad. And it's fascinating. I think, I do think 2023 is the year of AI, and we're going to see and hear a lot more about it. OpenAI being able to bring Chat GPT to the public and for people to be able to use it. But some of the reports are quite interesting that I've read from New York Times and Washington Post and others that have had extended conversations with Bing, and some interesting results from those chat conversations. um, you know, including Bing professing their love for people that are working with them, and
I
being
saw that too.
sensitive to being criticized, right, for not doing things correctly. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit different than how we're applying it in Ironclad for sure.
Yes,
That's what
yes,
you've seen all the different parts of Ironclad's AI at this point,
right.
right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So
So I
there's a
think
couple different parts of the AI that we're using. The first one, which it's not going to be the focus of this talk, is an import feature. It's called Smart Import, And it, like a lot of other AI tools, uses AI to analyze, in our case, already printed contracts, right? So these are typically contracts either from our historic repository or things that get signed outside of Ironclad. And we're able to, instead of having somebody coding them all, right, we're able to use Smart Import, have AI detect clauses and make suggestions to us so that we can, much more speedily import these documents, get the metadata into our repository. So that's that, and the ability to use it to analyze what's in the repository. If we want to evaluate compliance, right? Do our contracts have confidentiality clauses? That's an easy question that
Yeah.
can be pretty quickly answered. So
Yeah.
that's one way we're using it.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I think if it's not clear to the audience, L'Oreal uses our product, I feel like kind of end to end. There's so many different parts of the business that we touch. There's so many different parts of the product that you guys are leveraging already. So before we get too deep into the AI, I want to take a step back and have a conversation about the legal team and how you guys, as such a large multinational company, how do you think about negotiation and consistently negotiating across the enterprise? I know you're focused on the US, but would love just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it certainly is a challenge, right? Because we are in so many different countries, we're actually based in France. So I am part of a satellite office, technically, as opposed to the headquarters. The largest legal teams are in Paris. And one of the things we're going to talk a little bit about playbooks, but one of the things that we have that I imagine a lot of other big organizations have is we have a legal charter, and
Mm,
it's long. And I would hazard that a lot of people haven't read it, but it is a statement of principles, right, in terms of how L'Oreal as a corporation operates, and it covers everything from supplier contracts to environmental positions, a lot of things that will come up in contracts. So, and it's over 70 pages long, so it's a long
mm,
document to get through. Um, but it's for us at L'Oreal a point of reference. If we have questions about how we should be contracting, how we should be dealing with issues that come up, we can always go back to our legal charter. That is really the source of a lot of our positions.
that makes sense. So it
Yeah,
sounds like you already have maybe the foundation of understanding what positions you might want to take as a company. And I don't want to dive into
right.
those positions, obviously, today. But I think one of the biggest benefits that I know you've seen in just kind of being able to use that information inside the product is through playbooks. And so, can
Right.
you walk us through? I think in just a few minutes, we're going to go through a demo, but can you walk us through what it was like to set up playbooks in Ironclad, and then we can talk a
Yeah,
little bit more about
sure. So having a legal charter is not the same thing as having a playbook.
that. Okay.
And when you take a legal charter and you hand it to legal teams in 50 different countries, it's open to a lot of interpretation, really. And translating principles into legal language
Mm,
is a big undertaking, and it's not the same exercise in the U.S. that it is in other countries. And one of the points I'll make about coming up with a playbook is, to the extent anyone on this call and your legal teams already have playbooks, I'm going to guess they're in 3-ring binders and they're probably on a shelf behind your desk somewhere gathering dust. Um, it's the type of exercise that gets done maybe every couple of years when you have a legal intern for the summer.
mm,
And it's it with Ironclad and using playbooks within the tool, it really brings it to life, right? We're no longer talking about a static document that's in a binder. We're talking about a playbook that's applied in real time to the contracts that we're working with. And if you've ever tried to get a group of lawyers together to write a document. I mean, even negotiating is hard enough, but if you do an exercise in writing a template, and even
Yeah.
if you had 5 lawyers in the room, you're gonna have 5 different versions.
Hmm.
Lawyers have great pride in their own writing and tend not to want to follow anyone else's writing. So, um, coming up with language for templates or for playbooks, it's a big task. It requires a lot of participation, and it takes a long time to. It really is an iterative process.
Hmm.
And again, having it as part of Ironclad and part of our instance as opposed to in a binder really again allows us to be iterative, and to be up to date and actually make changes to our playbook based on changes to how we approach the business, changes in the business, changes in negotiating stance, changes based on our experience negotiating
Yeah.
contracts, which I think all of us would agree we would love to be more efficient, right? And
We're working on
be
that with
be, be
you.
more effective and have more time to, as they say, do the important work, or sit on the beach or whatever else you want to do with
Yeah.
your extra time. Um, so
Yeah.
yes,
That's really helpful. I think one of the things that we often hear from customers when we share about playbooks is we haven't even explained or we haven't even documented what our positions are, right? So it sounds like that's step one, right? You have to come up with what are the positions that you as an organization want to kind of see as priority and maybe less preferable options as a result of that, and document those before you can even get into building them. But that's the
right,
power of playbooks, right? The hard work comes up front, right? You have to come together with the decisions, but you don't have to do them all at the same time, right? You don't have to figure out your position for all of the
right,
clauses that you often negotiate. You can start small, you can start with one or two at a time, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think an interesting way to start, I think in the video, the upcoming, there's a discussion about how to set up playbooks, but one really simple way to start, at least, is to take your favorite template, upload it to a workflow, and from the workflow, build out a
Hmm.
clause library. That's how we first got started. We took our favorite templates and had Ironclad review them, analyze them, right, and to pull out the clauses that we wanted to use, and then create from there our fallback positions.
Nice. Okay, so we
Yeah.
got our first trick, our first tip for the
Okay,
day.
let's check it out.
Okay, so I wanted we gave a little bit of a lead up, but so for those of people that are new to Ironclad or maybe haven't had a chance to play around with playbooks yet or set them up for themselves, we've got a short demo that I wanted to show you just how simple that process is. So take a look.
A contract playbook lists the provisions of a contract type and provides negotiation guidance to mitigate risks. It's not a new legal tool, but using AI and Ironclad to manage your playbooks lets you standardize and maintain all legal guidance and preferred terms right where the contract is being reviewed and edited. Setting up a playbook is fast and easy. Go to the Playbook tab of a workflow template and start defining how to negotiate a specific clause. Let's start with governing law. First, we define the name and description to ensure every user understands the purpose of this clause. Next, we can use the power of Ironclad AI to detect any governing law clause within the document. Playbooks also allows users to determine the approval routing for any exceptions. For governing law, we'll set the legal team as the approver. In this demo, New York and California are accepted governing law values. New York is preferred, so will be designated as the standard, and California will be our fallback. As there can be more than one fallback option, it's essential to name the clause to avoid confusion. Here, we add its name, description, and the language. Let's try setting up another clause, this time for payment terms. Again, we'll add a name and a description and designate an approver in the event of any exceptions. For this example, finance will be that approver. Net 60 will be our standard term. with Net 45 as the fallback. That's how easy it is to set up playbooks in Ironclad. Now your legal team can negotiate contracts consistently and control risk better, all with Ironclad playbooks.
Great.
Exactly how it works.
Yeah, real easy. Awesome. So the two clauses that we saw were governing law and payment terms. I think those are pretty straightforward, I think, for a lot of people to understand how to use,
Sure.
how simple it is to set these things up. Charles, I would love to hear your feedback on the process and like setting it up. How easy was it? And what's the experience been like for your users so far, whether they're business users or legal users?
Sure. So I would say I think was quite easy to set up. Again, I think you need to know what you're going to put in that little box, right? As your position and your fallback position. But once you have those, the setup is actually quite simple and it operates very smoothly. So take for instance the payment clause language. We have a net 60 payment terms for domestic vendors. And when contracts get uploaded to our third-party paper workflow, you can imagine that oftentimes gets flagged because a lot of vendors like to be paid net 30. And so, without fail, that comes up oftentimes as a term, right, that needs to be approved. And in some organizations, maybe that would go back to finance for approval or approval of exception. I work a lot with sourcing teams at L'Oreal, and they're very sophisticated. So a lot of times, it will be the requester who will actually go in and approve an override if that's the case. Those types of business terms typically will get routed to the business people or potentially finance, whereas more straightforward legal terms, things like indemnification and limitation on liability, will be the issues that I, as the lawyer, will tend to focus on. And I think certainly one of the great benefits of Playbook or AI Playbook is that it allows me to have my assistant or other contract managers do an excellent job at a first pass of a vendor contract, and to do it really efficiently, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you've ever gotten a vendor contract that's in 8-point type and double or triple columns, 20 pages long, it takes anybody a long time, even if you're a quick reader, to find all of those positions, right? And AI playbooks can do that much faster. So again, I see AI and AI playbooks as a tool, right? Among the tools that I have as a lawyer to work effectively, work efficiently, be compliant with the positions my company has taken. So, as part of Ironclad, it's a great addition for me again, and able to use Ironclad and again use Ironclad more effectively and more efficiently.
Yeah. I love the way you described that. You called it a tool, right? Because we're not looking to replace, we're not at the point where AI is going to replace a very skilled lawyer like yourself. We're simply going to help kind of flag the things that are really repetitive that that you have to change or that you're okay with accepting. If you are accepting, if it's, net 45 or 60 doesn't matter to you, then don't spend time reviewing that. Don't spend time going through the contract and kind of editing that language in a way that's very time intensive over a period of time. So it makes a lot of sense for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So one of the things that I know I hear from customers a lot is I want more data. I want more insights. I want, no pun intended there, I want more context from the contracting that I'm doing. And how do I get that out of Ironclad? So I know that AI playbooks, one of the things that, one of the reasons that you saw value in Ironclad playbooks is that it is pulling those clauses out for you to later review them or for you to later check them out in the repository. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you think about leveraging something like AI playbooks to get better insight into your contracting data and trends?
Yeah, I think that is, ultimately where we want to be as a legal department, right? As opposed to, we don't want to be just, pumping out contracts. We want to understand, what we're doing, and is what we're doing, I want to say, whether it's market practice or market standard, although, like you said, AI is not going to replace the lawyers. I also think I'm not, and I tried this actually, I'm not going to be relying on Chat GPT to write my contracts. So I asked it to write me a SaaS agreement, a software as a service agreement,
Okay.
and it did. But it wasn't the language I would use, right?
Yeah.
And there weren't nearly enough words, because I use a lot
Yeah.
more words in our contracts than it did. So again, I think it is a tool. It is helpful to keeping us compliant, right? I think
Yeah.
with the terms, it allows us to be efficient. So you asked about getting more data out of contracts, and I think that's again the evolution and where we want to be. Most lawyers don't have enough time to step back and really analyze that and digest that. I mean, maybe we need a data scientist on our legal team to help us understand
Yeah.
what's going on. So I'll ask for that in our next budget.
Love that.
Um, and but ideally we would be able to spend the time to look at clauses, understand whether or not the position we take on our indemnification is slowing down contracts by a week or whatever that may be, or that we spend a lot of time negotiating that and understanding, maybe we need to take a different position, right? Should we come up with a different template or a different clause that's going to effectively and efficiently move the business forward, right, within the risk framework that we've set up? And I think writing better contracts is another way for lawyers to become efficient, right?
Yeah.
And our favorite, 50-page services agreements may not be where we need to be
Yeah.
in the marketplace. I'm not a big believer in sort of uniform templates. And
Yeah.
there's been a big push to try and do a standard uniform NDA across the industry. I think we as an organization, and given our size, right, and our position within our market, have a lot more negotiating leverage than a lot of the players we work with, or the vendors we work with. And we're not going to agree to the lowest common denominator contract, because that's not the negotiating position we're in, and it's not what we expect, right, from the vendors we work with. So I don't think that's going to happen. But again, I think that AI, right, and the ability to analyze our positions vis-a-vis the positions that our suppliers and our vendors are taking, can certainly help us with those relationships and to move it along much faster.
Yeah. And I think what you shared is similar to what I hear from a lot of customers too, which is that basically we need to start tracking it before we can measure it, right? You have to start by collecting the data, collecting the information. You can't rush into, let's just make decisions based on an incomplete set of information. And so that's something that I hear often. It sounds like you would agree with that too.
Yeah, I do. I have one other point, or
Yeah.
words of wisdom for people who are looking at CLM solutions. If you haven't decided, that the first priority really should be helping the lawyers do their work more effectively, right? I mean, that's where you're going to get adoption. That's where you're going to get buy-in. If the lawyers don't want to use your tool that has all this great analytics, right, so that management or finance can sit around and analyze it, it's not going to be effective. You need to have a tool that your lawyers want to use, get that going, and then build on that. I think a lot of companies, big enterprises especially, are used to, creating large committees, hiring big outside consultants, and spending a year and a half thinking about it. And meanwhile, that year and a half goes by, your lawyers still don't have anything to use, right? They're still frustrated. That I think a better approach is really to get the lawyers up and running and build from there, right? Because the rest of that will come as you become more sophisticated user.
Yeah, there's no question that having lawyers on board is critical to making sure that you've got the right CLM in place and that you're actually going to be able to get the insights that you want to get out of your contracting. Totally agree with you there. Okay, so I think we are almost at our next demo video. So we've seen now in the first video how playbooks are created. What I'd love to show you all in this next demo is what's the experience of a user, whether it's a legal user or business user, what's their experience like when they go through the contract review process using AI. So take a look.
Reviewing contracts can be time-consuming, but that's not the case when you have AI playbooks. Ironclad AI reviews and flags clauses based on the predefined language in your playbooks, helping your legal team to understand exactly what is in the contracts they are reviewing and where to pay close attention. Let's see how AI Playbooks works. When you start a workflow and upload a contract, Ironclad AI runs in the background and automatically reviews the contract and flags clauses for you. In this example, we can see 3 clauses that need to be fixed before signature. So let's dive in. In the editor, there are 2 tabs. The first tab is the document itself, and the second is where the playbook lives. When you go to the Playbooks tab, you will see Ironclad's AI suggestions. Here, we can see Ironclad AI flagged governing law, non-solicitation, and the payment term. When you click on each clause, Ironclad will bring you to the section in the doc and explain why the clause is flagged. For governing law, the document has Colorado as the jurisdiction, but we prefer New York or California. To solve this, we can simply replace the current clause with a predefined standard or fallback clause. Ironclad AI then updates the risk assessment immediately and in real time. Next, the non-solicitation clause. This is not something we want to agree to, so we can use the editor to delete it completely. Lastly, for the payment term, it says 30 days, but the preferred language is 45 or 60 days. We can easily replace it with our pre-approved and predefined playbook language. In addition to using Ironclad AI to manage risks, you can also use it to proactively make your playbooks better. Add any clause detected by Ironclad AI to your playbooks to make them more complete. Just click the plus sign next to a new clause and add it as you would any new playbook addition. With AI playbooks, you can scale up your contract negotiation process and turn around contracts faster.
Great. So we didn't talk about this too much after the first video, but one of the, I think one of the more powerful pieces of the functionality is that you can, if you have a position that you think is a non-standard position for your business, you can set up an approver, right? So if you have payment terms that don't align with the way that your business wants to run, and the workflow owner decides that they want to actually use those payment terms, it'll flag an approver, right? It'll flag a specific person that, the legal team, in this case, who's working on the workflow, has already said, okay, let's ask finance to take a look if payment terms are non-standard. So it gives you the flexibility, which I think is really important here, that your business users are allowed to kind of stay within the general guardrails of what your legal team is setting. But it also gives you the opportunity to make sure that you're giving them flexibility to go fast. Charles, do you have any thoughts about what we just saw? I know you used this part of the
Yeah.
product, but just showing from the context of the legal or business users and what you think.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing to and I think somebody asked in the chat here how quickly it works. It's very fast,
That's real
and
time, guys. We didn't edit any of
um, yeah, like real time. Yeah, when you mentioned approvers, which, and I think I said before that a lot of times I'll rely on the sourcing team as approvers, but there certainly is the ability to route things for approval wherever in the organization it needs to go. And before AI playbooks, if we had things, if we needed finance input, we would add finance as a reviewer, right, or an
Yeah.
approver to the overall contract. Using playbooks allows us to really zero in on the language that finance needs to approve, which is certainly a time savings for the person who's approving. They don't have to read through the whole document to try and find out where it is and what they're being asked to review or approve. So that granularity is great. Again, the granularity is really helpful for organizations that work that way,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not all organizations, some of them are more fluid or more,
Nice way to put it.
if you only have 3 lawyers and you're sitting around a big conference table, maybe you don't need to do all that setup. But for an organization like L'Oreal, where we've got finance teams in each of the 35 brands, right, as well as corporate and everywhere else, it's essential to be able to understand where things need to go for review. I think just in response to what was going on in the video, I think one of the ability with a single click to swap out language is amazing. It's really that's the kind of convenience, right, that really makes this a useful tool.
Mm-hmm.
If it just said, here's the clause, you got to cut and paste, the less cutting and pasting I have to do. I mean, that's one of the any lawyer who's tried to working in Word and trying to swap out paragraphs and get the formatting right and all of that, it's be a very time-consuming process. So
yeah. I think if I knew how much copy and paste there was in law school before I got there, I don't know if I would have chosen the same career path, but we're here. I'm happy to be here today.
exactly.
Cool. So you were also kind of alluding to the next, maybe I'll call it evolution of this feature, which is AI Assist. So would love to just talk to you a little bit more about AI Assist, because I know that is more specifically what you've been demoing more recently. If you wanna dive in there, that'd be good too.
Yeah, and I think we are going to see a little video about AI Assist and how that works. But one of the feedback that I had early on using AI playbooks was, this is great, but wouldn't it be great if there were one button where I just said, find everything, right, in this contract that we don't like or that we don't agree to, and generate all those red lines with the click of a button, and then swap them all out, right? I mean, it really is the ability for AI, for the computer, right, to take a first pass at the contract. And that's what AI Assist allows us to do. And I think that's just one of the first applications, really, of AI to the product. I think we're going to see a lot more probably soon, right, in terms of, here are the ways that AI can help within the framework of the product and of Ironclad. I mean, it's interesting to me when we were shopping around 6 years ago, right, before, AI was a buzzword, much like blockchain is a buzzword or has been recently. and one of the salespeople told me very confidently that their product was AI infused, and I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. What does that mean, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't have a very clear answer, but it's historic. I think for a lot of people, for a lot of salespeople, it's like we have AI, right?
Mhm.
Is the marketing buzzword, but there hasn't up until now been really a lot behind that. And I think now we're starting to see that, right? Where products really do have AI features and tools, and
Yeah.
it's not just a marketing tagline.
Yeah. I think that's such a great point. I know we've heard about AI for I don't even know how long at this point. We've seen a bunch of movies about all the cool and maybe not so cool things that AI can do. But I think especially for the legal profession, it feels like um, we're kind of at a turning point, right? There's been a slow evolution, I'll say, up until very recently, maybe the last 10 or so years, and now it feels like it's taking off, right?
Yeah,
Um,
and just to we in the legal department are oftentimes relatively late adopters in terms of the technology that the rest of the parts of our business are already using. And AI is already being used in a lot of other parts of our
yeah.
business. It's being used in HR, it's being used in finance, certainly being used in marketing.
Mhm.
And so it's time. It's time for the lawyers to have that ability to play around with that as well.
Yeah. Would you say that AI, I mean, I know we're still new, but would you say AI assist has helped your teams be more efficient? Are you seeing any efficiencies yet, or is that something you're really looking towards the
I
future?
mean, it's something we're looking towards. I do. I mean, it again allows me to do all my edits at once, right? I mean, it allows it certainly is has the promise of being much more efficient than what we have been doing, but we're still in early days using it.
Yeah. Great. So I wanted to make sure that we leave enough time, definitely for this demo, but also for Q&A. So I'm just going to flip to the demo. I want to share with you guys how exciting this is. That Charles has been in the beta for a little while and had a little taste of it, but want to share that with you all. So if we can just play that now, that'd be great.
Hi, Kai Gogwalt here, CTO and co-founder of Ironclad, and I wanted to give you a preview of AI Assist, the newest feature coming out of Ironclad AI. So the problem here is, as a lawyer on a internal contracts team, you can find yourself reviewing the same type of agreement over and over again and making the same repetitive changes. With Ironclad AI and leveraging the power of generative AI, we can actually help speed up and make this process more consistent. So let's say we go into a workflow here, and we're a contracts attorney who has been tasked with reviewing a vendor agreement with a new vendor we want to work with in Ingenico. If we jump into the master services agreement, we can see that Ironclad AI has already gone through and read the agreement clause by clause, linking up concepts in the agreement in the text of the document with the concepts in our playbook. On top of this, Ironclad AI has identified a number of issues in the contract, ranging from a missing clause, our organization requires attorney's fees to be present, to a non-standard governing law. This one seems to be in the state of Colorado. We accept California, Delaware, and New York. Now we can go ahead and actually make these changes directly, either copying in and swapping in language or directly editing the document in this contract editor. However, why don't we just click AI Assist? And here, Ironclad AI is coming in, leveraging large language models and generative AI to actually resolve the 5 issues that we identified. And as you can see, we've changed governing law from Colorado to California. We've removed 2 problematic provisions around indemnification and non-solicitation. We've updated our payment terms from net 30 to net 45. And we're currently inserting some standard language around attorney's fees into this contract. And with the click of a button, we're going to make all of these changes. And as you can see, the 5 issues that Ironclad AI had identified in the playbook have now been all resolved. On top of that, these changes have been made with track changes on, which will make it very easy for Ingenico to understand the changes that we're requesting. And finally, if we look at the attorney's fees clause, you can see that rather than making up some random attorney's fees clause, Ironclad AI has actually inserted the standard language from our playbook into the contract. So that's super helpful for taking a pass at the first round of a contract. But can AI Assist help with subsequent rounds, version 2, version 3, version 4 of a document? Absolutely. So let's say we want to make a custom change to the use and non-disclosure provision, and we haven't encoded it into our playbook yet. We can just highlight the relevant text, click AI Assist, and make some changes like make confidentiality neutral. And again, using large language models and generative AI, Ironclad is able to make some suggestions to the user about how we might change this language to make confidentiality mutual. And there have been a couple of suggestions here, all kind of getting to the same effect. But let's go with this one here in the middle, where we're actually getting rid of the concept of a receiving or disclosing party entirely. So we can click select, and just like that, we've made all of the changes with track changes on, and we can actually use this as either a starting place or the ultimate change that we want to make. So that's AI Assist, the newest feature coming out of Ironclad AI, helping make repetitive contract negotiation faster and more consistent, leveraging the power of large language models and generative AI. Thank you.
Okay,
I
how cool
love
was
the
that?
example. I love the confidentiality example. I mean, how many lawyers, will you get a contract back and the comment is make mutual, right? Because they're not going to take the time to actually go through the paragraph and figure it all out. So it's the ability to rely on AI to make those kinds of changes and to make them probably much more accurately
Yeah.
than me going through and trying to make some clause mutual or make it exclusive to one party is that's like one of the worst reviewing tasks a lawyer is
So
faced with.
yeah. Yeah, I love that because I think it's a very practical example that every lawyer can understand, everyone who works in legal could understand, right?
Right.
Oftentimes you just get stuck doing these tasks that like are high value because we want to make sure that we get this right, but maybe take more time than you would like to. And
Right.
so again,
Right.
just making sure that you're just giving you an opportunity, another tool that you can use to actually make things move faster and more efficiently.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate your immediate
Yeah.
feedback on that one. That was great. So I think now we might have some time for questions. But actually, just before I get into that, I wanted to ask you, do you have any other thoughts about your experience with AI Assist or anything else about Ironclad AI that you wanted to share before we get into those questions?
Sure. Yeah, I do. So here's where I see this going. um, I see my AI, right, at L'Oreal talking to your AI at supplier and doing the first round of negotiations without my involvement or anyone else's involvement, right? So to be able to consider this too. I mean, we think about autonomous cars, right, or vehicles, and what's happening is you're taking the collective learning, right, of all the cars on the road, feeding it to one car, and it's able to act on that collective knowledge, right? So maybe there's a future like that in in AI in legal, where we take the learnings of every contract that's being negotiated in Ironclad and can apply it individually to our own situation, or we take the collective learnings of the vendor or of L'Oreal, right, to help inform the positions that we take. So I think that's coming soon.
All right. Well, I will submit that as product feedback for our
Right.
roadmap, and I'll let you know when it's live.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we do have some questions. Let me just get oriented. Okay, so would love for you to go into more detail about how you use Ironclad Playbook and AI in using influencer agreements as an example. So how do you account for the large variety in licensing terms, type of content ask, agency terms? And that's a question from Kayla.
Great. So we do a ton of influencer agreements, thousands upon thousands of them at L'Oreal. The question is interesting. We have some very, I won't say rigid, but we have some expectations around the positions that we're taking with influencers around the content, right? That have been informed by the thousands of contracts that we've done. We, in most cases, the influencer will own their content, and there will be, a use period, right? So that's, those types of positions are something that AI can detect around ownership, around usage terms, and things like that. It is interesting when we get into negotiating, because now, instead of negotiating with the influencer's parent, we're negotiating with the influencer's agent and their lawyer, and the whole process becomes so much more sophisticated. But AI and AI assists are useful tools in that negotiation. Hope that's helpful.
Cool. Okay, let me see if I've got another one here. Okay. There's a question about, okay, with the amount of influencer contracts that you're submitting, are you using the Google Sheets upload feature, or are these submitted individually? I don't know if you're using that.
We are not.
Okay.
So is the question about bulk uploads, essentially?
I think the question, just about efficiency in getting all those influencer contracts submitted, or requests submitted, I guess.
Yeah. So the volume has grown exponentially over the last several years. When we do large campaigns with influencers, a lot of times the agencies that are helping us will do the contracting. So if we're doing a campaign with 80 new influencers, we may provide the template, but sometimes that contracting will get outsourced. I don't know whether they're using Ironclad or not for that. But in terms, we have used bulk upload features for other types of contracts, where we've done a large group, maybe for influencers, but in other situations, maybe where we've had amendments that we need to make to 50 different services agreements at the same time, things like that. And so, yes, the ability to do that is helpful.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of emphasis in streamlining the legal team's work in our product in the next year. It has always been, but certainly a lot more emphasis on it this year, which is why you're seeing more features around AI to help you and your legal team in general just move more efficiently.
So I think one of the other things I would mention, just in response to that question, is, if you're doing 100 influencer agreements, maybe you should have a click through, right? Maybe maybe that's the way to be more efficient, is to discourage negotiation and say to all those influencers, here are our terms. If you want to participate in our program, click here, right? And I mean, it's just another frame, right, in terms of how to think about. And influencers is a great example. I mean, when just given the volume, right? And it's going to depend on your brand. It's going to depend on who you work with, whether you can take that sort of all or nothing approach. But for smaller, smaller projects that are maybe much bigger, where you're doing product sampling or something like that, a click-through agreement may be the way to go.
Love that. Okay, so I think we're almost up on time. Charles, I wanted to make sure I said thank you for your time today.
You're very welcome.
And also thank you to everyone who joined us. AI Assist is currently in a closed beta. So if you are a current customer and you want to learn more about AI Assist, AI playbooks, smart import that Charles mentioned at the top, any applications of AI that are in Ironclad, please reach out to your customer success contact. And if you're a prospect, please submit either a demo request or reach out to your sales contact if you already have one. Everyone on the call is going to get a copy of this recording soon, so please check your email. And thanks again, Charles, for joining us. Any last words?
No, thank you. This is, like I said, it's an exciting new era in work for all of us. So looking forward to it.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time today and have a good day.
All right,
Bye.
Take care.